Hey everyone, I was going to do a video on body dysmorphia, the one I was planning, which I think I'm going to do that tomorrow, where I take my shirt off and grab things and show you all the fears that come in from certain things, why it's important to look at yourself in the mirror without a pump. But I changed my mind on the video I wanted to do because I just got done with numerous calls in a row, and I have a couple more after this, so I wanted to squeeze this in, and I wanted to talk about why you're stuck. And I want to talk about some points that kept me stuck and why it's so important to change these things. And I'm going to make this short and sweet and right to the point. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy to apply that practically, but this will be very important for people to hear. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below, look for that direct message to Phil. Please annoy him, tell him he's ugly, he's a loser, tell him you never want to speak to him again. No, Phil's great. And he makes things run very smoothly on his end in the booking and billing department. So, and then, the webinars are every 8:30 p.m. Tuesday, which I think I actually want to title a webinar. I think we have a great turnout, why you're not recovering. So I want to talk about why you're not recovering, obviously. The first thing is the ability, because of the realness factor of how real it feels, to spend a lot of time convincing me on calls, or Rob, or Momin, or Sam, or anyone else you work with, why you're the exception. Why there's no way that you could accept. When I first came in to see Rob, I had just left the mental hospital. My sensory motor was out of control. My depersonalization and derealization was off the charts. I felt very disconnected. I felt like I was constantly on a quarter of shrooms. Anyone who's taking shrooms knows that feeling. So I felt completely disconnected, and my body dysmorphia was always there. It's been there since 17 years old, but it wasn't full-fledged because I was doing so many compulsions and avoidance behaviors. And I tried to do everything in my power because I can sympathize and empathize and completely understand, but it's important that we say why this doesn't work, on why I was different, why I was the exception. And I have it every single day on calls, all day, every day. People try to convince me why they're different. And not only is that unfortunate because it's not the case, but you're doing yourself a major disservice by trying to convince yourself why you're the exception. You have to flip the narrative. I'll use a very simple financial one. And I get it. Some people really don't like these type of phrases and they're not the whole thing. But, if someone says, well, they'll say, I can't afford that, instead of how could I afford it? And people say that's a wishy-washy thing. Well, it's not if your actions and behaviors match that, and your motivation and drive can match that certain thing. Most people can move up in their income classes. If they work harder, work longer hours, there's sacrifice that come with it. Everything I've done in my life that's gotten me stronger, in better shape, better in my career, better marriage with my wife, more compromise. A lot of that was more work and more compromise and more thoughtfulness to what I was doing. OCD recovery is no different in that sense. It takes a lot of effort of how can I learn to accept that? Acceptance doesn't mean agreement. The second thing, which leads me into something I believe I coined, this one I can finally take that from Rob. So the two things I coined is OCD recovery doesn't require maintenance mantras. And the other one is unconditional self-acceptance isn't complacency. I'll use a broad example. Let's say you have a fear of harming your dog. And you have all these intrusive thoughts of stabbing your dog, of kicking them. Lots of people have this, and obviously it goes into their children, it goes into strangers, a lot of groping fears, consent fears. People believe that if they apply unconditional self-acceptance, that's synonymous with complacency and laziness. So I hear people, you can't accept yourself. You have to be striving for more and more and more. That doesn't have to exist in a vacuum. You can strive for more, want more for your life, and accept yourself with the possibility and inevitability of failure, because most people learn more from their failures and doing things right all the time. Actually, if you do things right all the time, it can really get to your head and build that egotistical outlook, which actually is usually the fear of rejection. So like I always say, I think Freud got that completely wrong, where he talked about the ego, like the ego was an unknown subconscious thing. And I think Jung called it the shadow. And I haven't read a lot of Jung's work, but we like to nickname things. We don't need to call it a shadow. We just call it a person has irrational beliefs around rejection. It's just, we simplify it. I make it simple, stupid. Like I always say, if you can't explain this, to a 3-year-old or your younger self, you're not going to be able to really connect with your audience. And I think that's what makes us very good at that, because I practice that day in, day out, all day. And it's something that means a lot to me, because if you talk at a high level and use Freudian terminology or Ellis terminology, like in the myth of self-esteem, you just lose people. You just lose them. So you got to make it Look, the ego more than likely isn't what you think it is. It's just a fear of rejection. And unconditional self-acceptance does not mean complacency. Because you could accept yourself with the loss of your values and go, and I talk about all that. But you believe that if you become self-acceptance, like in your career, the career is a very, very important thing. Sorry, I just forgot. I was getting some messages. Usually I have that turned off and I was like, why are my messages popping up when I make my video? But that was really something that got me. That really scared me. So with my body dysmorphia, because you always hear you got to be going more. Don't be lazy. Don't strive for mediocrity. Those irrational beliefs. Then what people do is because they've convinced themselves with that belief has got them success. Not so fast. Let's say you won a bodybuilding show and you believe that your utterly flawless discipline in bodybuilding and fitness and nutrition has gotten you, say, an IFBB, International Federation Bodybuilding card, okay? International Federation, Foreign Federation, whatever IFBB stands for, okay? I even forgot the terms because I'm so disconnected with that world. And you say incorrectly that your discipline got you that. This is going to be very argumentative for most people. But it's also taken many things from you. Because if you failed, you crumbled. You're a house on stilts on the side of a mountain with a lava fucking field going underneath you. If that goes, boom, you're done. See ya. That's why we see people lose their careers and they do really bad things like take their lives or do other heinous acts, which scares people to even hear that. So you could achieve greatness, which is a complete perspective. Some people think just having a family and staying at home is greatness, which it is. It's all perspective driven. But let's say greatness in the bodybuilding example, but you fail and you get second. Instead of crying and stomping your feet and talking shit about the other person, which is the normality in most sports, that's happening because you have convinced yourself that you should be a winner. And if you're not a winner, you're a loser. So you go, I can never accept myself. I have to strive for more. That whole thinking process is so faulty that people can't see it until they're on the other side of it. I don't need to do anything for the rest of my life. I don't choose to do that. I choose to stay busy, work hard, solve problems, spend time with my wife, hike, and work long, long, long hours. Why? Because I love it. But do I need that? No. If I broke my leg tomorrow and I had to sit on the couch watching Netflix for the next 6 months, it would not affect me outside the first day or two. I'd be like, this sucks. But then I'm sure I would get used to it like I did with all the other injuries I've had and stuff. I have an umbilical hernia right now. I mean, it's wild. It literally is, I just had to stick it back in. I probably have to get that fixed one day. It's so weird. Anyone that's had an umbilical hernia, it's like, can feel it suck back in. So when I have to get that fixed, I might be out of the gym for 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Who knows? So I was like, cause me any problems? But the doctor told me, he was like, look, one day it's probably going to cause you problems. You're going to have to get the mesh. So I know that. I know it's going to happen. It's not the end of the world. And that doesn't drive me to become depressed because I haven't attached, I must always be doing more. I must always be doing more in order to achieve greatness. I had a great talk with someone about this when it comes to the political sphere. If she watches this, she'll know who I'm talking about. It's the same thing. Politics, money, religion, sports, athletes, success in business, anything. And I hear it all over the big talking heads on YouTube that were just unconditional acceptance. They're trying their best, but it misses. That was a shitty snap. That was whoa. Misses them like a... It just goes right over their head. They wouldn't have run over my head either if I didn't suffer with chronic OCD, so it doesn't bother me. It's like when people say, how do you not get mad on all the people who misunderstand OCD? I'm like, because I wouldn't have understood OCD if I didn't have it. So it just is what it is. Jim Rohn put up the best one of his. He said, people complain to me about the complainers. I said, why are you mad? And it's their job. Let them complain. And he's just laughing about it. And I really appreciated Jim Rohn's thing on that. I do try to apply that. So it doesn't mean complacency. And the last thing I want to talk about, which matters in my opinion, more than everything. Yes, the belief is the most important piece long term, but there is something that actually is more important in a global factor of making change now, because you can't change your belief in the now. And that is this. You are unwilling to give up behaviors. And I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. I did not want to change my behaviors. And no matter how subtle, your beliefs will not shift. Your belief and your behaviors have to match, not in a one-to-one ratio, like I said. but your behaviors have to shift, and people will come up with any excuse, and I was no different, on why they're not ready, they haven't read the books yet. You don't need to read the books and understand to stop Googling, okay? Yes, it's going to feel real. Yes, your symptoms are going to be crazy. They're you putting off cutting compulsions. The amount of people I speak to on calls that have a very good theoretical knowledge of unconditional self-life, other acceptance, there's a lot of them. I was one of them. Yeah, I could unconditionally accept myself, and not being in the best shape and not having all the muscle I used to have. Like I could accept myself from that. I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? I'm not on anabolic steroids anymore. I don't look nearly like I used to. It's not the end of the world. But my behaviors didn't match that, so I just wouldn't budge. Just kept going, keep going. So really think about these 3 things. These are some of the main reasons why you're still stuck. We can help you. I can help you. Our slots are filled up all day, morning to night. We got all different people working with calls in different time zones, right? We got the Middle East, we got the UK, we got America. We hit all the time zones. We can get you in. We try our best to do it, but we are busy helping people shift their beliefs, telling them why they have to change their behaviors and from the lived experience. Look out for that direct message with Phil. We can get you in and help you. Always a pleasure. Have a good one, everyone.